All right. Well, I think that's all I have to say about Final Fantasy VII. So finally, let's get on to some disappointing 2024 games, and we'll do this in like 2 or 3 sessions, whatever.
Can I go?
Yes.
Because I actually have a disappointing game that's related.
Yeah, I have a feeling I know what it is, so let's go ahead and start on that.
I don't want to like shoot the load there, because the game was still fun.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to talk about disappointing games, I have to talk about Rebirth. I just have to.
Whoa.
Because there's no game that disappointed me more than that did.
Really?
Now, King, you have famously been a defender and enjoyer of Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yes, I still like Remake.
So what about this video game did not live up to that?
I like Rebirth, but like not nearly as much. Here's the deal, right? Remake to me was the promise of some insane bullshit. And because the end of the game is basically like, we are going to change everything. And I was like, cool. I'm on board with that. I'm kind of sick of remakes that are playing it straight for the most part. I know that obviously remake is like a reimagining, but like,
right.
I would like to see people play with the concept of a remake in more fascinating ways. And that's what I thought remake was going towards. It had toyed around with what FF7 was. And I was like, that's cool. I want to see where that goes. Rebirth does kind of do that. The thing that annoys me about Rebirth is that, like, as a game, I think it's fun. It's more fun than Remake was. All the characters have been massively expanded. It kind of feels like the jump from, like, KH1 to KH2 in a lot of ways.
Really? Okay.
All the characters have, like, massively fleshed out. Aerial combat now is... Because the aerial combat in Remake sucked ass. Like, it was really bad. But in Rebirth, it's been massively expanded where you can actually fight in the air and you have, like, special attacks. And all of the characters have combo attacks with each other that are really cool.
Oh, like double attacks.
Like tag team action. It's kind of like Chrono Trigger, I guess, but like in an action game. And I think it continues to do what Remake did well in the sense that it is not quite an action game in the same way that maybe like Final Fantasy 16 is more of a straight up action game. It is an action game, but you play it a lot more like you would play an RPG. Like some attacks just aren't meant to be dodged and stuff like that because, you know, if you play it as like more of a hybrid between the two, the fact that when you're in the menu, time slows down, it feels like there was a deliberate attempt to keep a lot of RPG elements. And I think that Rebirth carries that over really well in the stuff that they've added. Enemies and bosses are a bit more aggressive to match your like increased speed and stuff. So when I was fighting things, it was more fun than Remake and I had a good time.
All right.
The problem is that it pretty much just is FF7 with added fluff until you get to the very end of the game and then it's balls to the walls insane. And
so just like the last game.
Really, yeah, but like when you pop the cork off at the end of Remake, for lack of a better phrase, the implied promise is that you have now broken time and things are just kind of going to be crazy going forward.
It literally ends with the unknown journey will continue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that sets a certain kind of expectations for people to stay on the ride or leave the ride. And the problem that I see is that they just didn't commit at all until the very end of the game. It's kind of. And it's strange that they would do this. Like, I just don't really get it. Because you play Rebirth and it really just is, you go to the same places, do the same things, except now maybe they've expanded on Barrett's backstory a little bit and added cutscenes or whatever. And then, like, obviously it's like a more open game, so you run around doing Ubisoft towers. That part of the game actually sucks bad.
The open world stuff?
Yes.
Wow.
It does. Because, I don't know, a lot of people said they liked it, and that is, you know, I respect it, but when you look at what you're doing in the open world, when you're not doing, like, maybe one of the side quests with, like, some characters that exist in it, and you're, like, talking to them, you pretty much are running around, fighting a few enemies, activating towers for fucking Chadley, who I hate. And I even hated Chadley in Remake. I liked that game, but Jesus Christ, Chadley. Chadley is more of a presence in this game, let me tell you, because every time you activate a fucking tower, he talks to you. That's fun. And you're basically activating the towers for him for some reason. I don't even really remember the reason. I think it's like he needs data or something. I don't know.
Is it better or worse than Grand Pulse from 13?
No, I guess it depends. Like, because Grand Pulse was when I started to enjoy and understand the combat of that game more as like an actual place with like side quests. I
Grand
don't know.
Pulse is a lot like Hyrule Field and Ocarina of Time, but like with big monsters and shit, right? Like, am I crazy for saying that?
It's like
Yeah,
you get
it kind of is
80%
like
of the way
that.
through the game. You've spent the entire game in Cocoon, and it's like finally, suddenly, it's like, okay, we're done with the linear hallways. Now you can sort of explore a little bit.
I guess it's kind of like that. Because can I compare it to? It is a lot like... It has Ubisoft DNA, because in the Assassin's Creed games, there's like almost nothing interesting going on in the open world, except there's like this one side quest that gets you this cool looking armor. And that's almost exactly what happens in Rebirth, where like, for the most part, you walk around, there's like some bosses out there maybe that are kind of fun to fight. But for the most part, it's just you activate towers and fight enemies. But then there's one side quest in each area that's related to Gilgamesh that is actually interesting because it has like little mini games going on, and you're kind of chasing Gilgamesh around the world. And that's like interesting because it culminates in like a fight against him. That's fun. But when you're not doing that, there's every open world, there's nothing really like, there's climbing segments, but there's no, like, the Chocobo can glide and fly sometimes, but it really doesn't feel like there's all that much purpose to it in a lot of the areas, except for maybe like Gongaga. I think Gongaga might have been my favorite part of the game because it was massively expanded in role from what it was in the original game. And it's also the place that's like really stresses like you got to kind of figure out where you're going. And it felt less like an open world and more just like a level. Like it was open, but like you had to like bounce on certain mushrooms to like get to different places of the jungle. And because it was a jungle, it was kind of like the facade of there not being as much to do was not as like present, maybe is the best way to put it. It's kind of hard to explain this if you've not played like, has anybody played like a Far Cry or an Assassin's Creed or something like that? Where like,
yeah.
There's a lot of stuff to do.
But
And there's
a lot of it's
huge
not meaningful.
checklists, but most of the time it's like, yeah, maybe you can help out this dude kill some bugs or like, I don't know. And I don't know why it's in the fucking game. Like, I just don't get it. I had always struggled to imagine getting out of Midgar and what they were going to do with the structure of the game. And I was kind of surprised when they were like, yeah, we're going to do an open world. It's more, to say open world is kind of interesting because it is kind of more like, if we can steal a term from one of the legends of our time, an open zone game. Because it's broken up into different segments that you travel between. And so in that sense, it's not quite like a Ubisoft game in terms of you're in a giant sandbox. It's more like it's broken into different segments, but functionally what you're doing is almost no different, especially because a lot of the characters you're trying to help in side quests, most of them are just, I don't care about. They're just random fucking people that are like, maybe we can like kill some monsters to make room for like this mini game that was in Remake that we're now reusing.
It's like that part in Crash Twinsanity where you meet that farmer and he's like, can you kill these worms for me and I'll give you a crystal? And then Cortex just shoots him.
Yeah. But it's tough because not all of the content is like that, but a surprising amount of it is. Or like, I hope you like fucking Johnny, because he's like basically your main quest giver in Costa del Sol. But then there's like a cute segment where Cloud and Aerith go on a date and like they do the stupid, you're at like a carnival and they have like stupid carnival games and you do cute little stupid carnival games. And there's segments where you can do like the piano and play like piano rendered songs from the game that are actually like kind of hard because the piano mechanics have like all the different octaves and stuff that you have to switch between, and like it's actually surprisingly a deep little system they got going on there.
Yeah.
And so you get nuggets of these little fun moments like fighting Gilgamesh or like doing these cute little games or like the fun combat. And then for the most part, a lot of your playtime is, if you're not just barreling forward through the story that's almost unchanged from FF7 except meaningless additions, It's like you go out, you fight monsters, you maybe do a quest for somebody, or you find like a chest that has something in it that doesn't matter because the items in the game are not all that useful. So basically, the most fun I had with the game was doing the combat, because most of the story segments were kind of just like, I've seen this before. And then, for some fucking reason, you get to the very end of the game and they're like, okay, everything's gonna change now. I guess I'm gonna have to spoil the game now, I don't know.
Let's go!
The following contains endgame spoilers for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Viewer discretion is advised.
You get to the end and they're like, they've decided to kill Aerith and not kill Aerith. And I'm not joking about that. They decided to kill her in a way where she's still around, but only in Cloud's mind. So she's dead to everybody except to Cloud. She's still alive because his mind is broken.
Mm-hmm.
So she's still around, but during the scene where she gets like killed, it's like mostly obscured. You barely even get to see the scene where she dies because Cloud doesn't think she's actually dead. And I'm like, wow, that's an interesting concept. Why is this the only time that the game has ever changed? I don't understand what's going on.
You know, that kind of reminds me in Batman Arkham Knight when the Joker's dead, but then only Batman sees him because of the fear toxin. So maybe in the next Final Fantasy VII remake trilogy thing, Aerith will just be like the devil on Cloud's shoulder, telling him to like fuck shit up.
Yeah, I mean, I can hope that that's going to be the case, but that's how I felt at the end of the remake, and really nothing happened until then. It's just kind of, yeah, this is Final Fantasy VII, until they were like, well, now we're going to pull this crazy shit out of the hat where Sephiroth, there's a point in the game where it just dives directly off the deep end and Sephiroth pulls Cloud into the multiverse, and he's like, I control time now and I'm going to blow up the multiverse.
What?
And I want you to do it with me, Cloud. Join me. And then I'm like, okay.
And we will rule the galaxy as father and son.
He basically has a moment like that. But the game is really coy about whether this Sephiroth is who this person even is, because at some point when they're trying to play the story straight, he just acts like he does in the original.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But then when they want to do whatever new stuff they're doing, he acts like he's from the fucking future or something, which I guess he is, but it's really hard to get a read on what's going on because of shit like that. And I really don't think it had to be this way. I think I'm not going to pry into their minds and try to figure out why they did this, but I really think somebody involved in development was like, we don't want to go too far because we want to court these two audiences of people who want the game to be remade, but also the people that want the new stuff. And so they just did both.
Oh, so they're trying to play
way possible.
They're trying to play both sides.
Which doesn't make any sense to me because both sides are directly in combat with each other. And I thought the point of the end of Remake was we can make a straight up remake of Final Fantasy VII, but we're not going to do it. And I thought that was the signal.
Right.
But it's not, because they just did it again. They were like, oh, actually, we are going to make a straight up FF7 remake again. But at the end, no, Aerith's not actually dead, kind of. She's like Schrodinger's Aerith. And then Zack also shows up. I fucking forgot about this part. Zack has segments in the game in a parallel timeline. Zack has segments in the game in a parallel timeline of his own where all the characters are dead.
What?
And the sky is broken, and he shows up at the end to fight Bizarro Sephiroth. And then he goes away.
I feel like these games really don't know what they want to be.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that's what really bothered me about Rebirth, is because to me, Remake was making a very clear statement that not everybody liked, but to me it was a clear statement.
Yeah.
And Rebirth seems very confused. It did not want to follow up on that statement.
Well, how much of that was a reaction to the reception of the first game?
I don't know. It's impossible to know if this was the plan all along, or if I just don't know what kind of expectations they were trying to set with Remake. I just don't I still like that game, but looking back, I just feel like it's even more confusing now because of the direction they took after it. I just don't really get.
I guess it's not really even that surprising to hear that, like, Aerith dies, but JK not really, because, like, and this is also part of the problem that I had with the first part of this, was that the first game was chock full of stuff like that. Like, Barrett gets stabbed by Sephiroth. Oh, but it wasn't really Sephiroth, but the ghost people bring him back. So, oh, nope, that you don't have to worry about that. Fucking Biggs and Wedge die, but then no, one of them comes back and it's like there for like for the last part of the game. And then like the last credit or one of the scenes before the credits is the other guy. I don't remember who it was, either Biggs or Wedge. He's like, oh, nope, he's not dead either. So who knows? Maybe even Jesse's not dead. And so it's like, yeah, of course you can't decide whether or not you want to kill Aerith. You know, it's this back and forth about like, who do we want to keep? What do we want to do? And it's like, for me, it's like, not to like get on a tangent about why I don't like 7 Remake, but it's just like, even when I was playing that game, it's like, it felt like as if it didn't know what it wanted to do.
Yes.
It's like it wants to shock you, but not shock you too much. You know, we don't want to scare you. We don't want you to run away, but, you know, we're going to do some things that you don't expect, but not like, we're not going to go too far. Don't worry, this character isn't really dead. They're only mostly dead. And
well,
I'm like,
your
I don't
friend
care.
here is only mostly dead.
It's like, I don't really care. So it's like to hear that like 7 Rebirth doesn't really commit as hard as it should. I don't know. It's not like it's a bummer. Like I was kind of hoping that, like, I didn't really have much of a horse in this race, but like for the people who wanted this to go balls to the wall, go full ham.
Yeah.
I wanted it to, you know, for them. I wanted that to happen for them. I would not have played it, but at least people who liked the kind of stuff that like 7 Remake was doing, at least they would have gotten a kick out of it. So it's kind of, you know, it's pretty sucky to hear that like it's
a game for no one. Apparently, neither of those parties.
What's weird about this is that it is actually one of the most popular games in terms of reception and like of last year.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people liked it because I guess most of the game is like trying to directly adapt FF7 into like a new form until the ending.
Yeah,
and it's like that's the kind of primarily what it's trying to do now, I guess, and it did work for a lot of people. Except almost everybody that liked the game said that the ending was weird and bad. But that's my favorite part of the game, is because it's the most fucking bizarre part, where like all this weird shit that I was hoping was gonna happen, like I didn't really watch a lot of trailers. I kind of glimpsed some of them during like game presentations or whatever, but I didn't really know what was going on because like a lot of them would like open up on Zack carrying Cloud, which implied to me like, oh yeah, a lot of crazy shit's gonna happen. Maybe like the expectations I had for this game was like, oh, maybe they're gonna like awaken the fucking weapon of the planet like soon, and he's gonna like do crazy shit. I don't know. Like we're still gonna go to the same places, but like
direction.
Different events are gonna happen there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like it'll be a similar journey, but like an unknown one. And I don't. For people that have played the ending of Remake, I do not think that was an unfair expectation. I think that was the expectation. Like,
yeah,
the ending's fucking insane in Remake, and I was like, okay, well, I'm ready for that. And I did get that at the end. I will say the ending of Rebirth is, and I will stand by this, one of the most immaculately directed things that I've seen Nomura do specifically in a very long time. Because most of the game, I don't know about what his hand was and what. When I got to the ending sequence, I was like, Tetsuya Nomura made this. He cooked this. Because this is some shit that was like the way that it was paced out and like how the boss fights work and like the crazy shit that was happening. It gave me Kingdom Hearts 2 ending vibes, and I do not say shit like that lightly.
Right.
It was fucking crazy and awesome. The fact that it stuck the landing the way that it did, I can't look on it as like a failure. But the lead up to that was some of the most hot and cold video game shit that I've done in a very long time, where like some moments I was like, oh, I'm really fucking with this, and some moments I did not want to progress further at all. So, I don't know, man. I just don't really know where I sit with it in terms of like parts of it were fucking peak video games and parts of it were like, what the fuck, who cooked this?
He burnt my shake.
Is this how you get your sick kicks?
What? It's just Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Oh my goodness! Squidward!
Who cooked here? It's just such a bizarre game to me, and it's definitely the most disappointing game that came out that I cared about anyway.
Man, I'm sorry about that.
And I'm still vaguely interested in the third part, because I'm sure that will have a fucking insane ending, but I'm not as invested. I was really excited for Rebirth, and I don't know, these days, I'm willing to say things like, even if I don't fully agree with it in my head, I think maybe I just took things away from Remake that were never actually intended for me to take away. I don't know. That's the only explanation I have, other than they changed their minds. But
or maybe they
I
just
don't know,
had
man.
no plan.
Maybe I just saw Remake in a different way than they ever intended for it to be seen. But a lot of people I've seen have the same kind of disappointment, so I don't know. It's an interesting situation.
Right. Ryan, do you have a disappointing game? I've got one that you played.
A disappointing game that I've played?
Yeah.
A disappointing game that I played? No, but I have a disappointing game that I haven't played.
All right. We could talk about it if you, King and I have played it, maybe. Just let's throw it out there.
I don't think anybody has actually played this because it was the world's first quadruple A game, Skull and Bones. I was really
Skull and Bones.
Unironically, I was looking forward to that game because I don't know very many pirate-themed games that are actually really good. Apparently, Sea of Thieves got better, but that's still a game that you're supposed to play with friends, and I don't really have people to play that game with. So it's like, I don't know. The East game that came out last year apparently has like boat combat in it, and I have not played it yet, so we won't be talking.
Or something.
Yeah, it's like some Nordic thing. No, wait, no, Monster Nox was a few years ago. This was East 10. This is about like Nordics stuff, apparently.
Was it called
Yeah.
Nordics? Proud Nordics?
Yeah, something like that. That apparently has some pretty cool like boat stuff, some open ocean exploration. So I feel like there's a market there, but no one's really like doing enough to tap into it. So, I mean, if anyone who's watching this knows any good like pirate-ish games, just, let me know. I heard Wind Waker Randomizer is pretty close to that. But no, that was just kind of like a bit of a blow to me. It was like, oh, because I was kind of like, when they first announced it years and years ago, I'm like, oh, that could be kind of good.
Yeah.
And then apparently it was not good.
Like, take the stuff from Assassin's Creed 3 and 4 and like expand that into a full game was the idea.
Yeah. But apparently that was not it. So apparently Black Flag is also very good, and I have not played it yet. It's on my to-do list.
Yeah. It's like one of the better. Do you guys remember last year when I brought up Assassin's Creed Mirage?
Yes.
I found out
it was a Mirage.
I found out that the main character in that is actually voiced by Agent Stone.
I think I said that at one point, didn't I?
Maybe you brought that up last year and I just didn't notice.
I don't really know how else to say this, but I think the guy who plays Agent Stone is one of the most handsome men on the planet.
Honestly,
He is fitted the fuck out in every single one of these movies.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. And it turns out that the mentor character lady, she's actually an Iranian actress who was in that Renfield movie with Nicolas Cage as Dracula.
Renfield is very good, by the way. You should go watch it if you haven't.
Yeah, you know the lady with the really deep voice who's like the crime mafia lady?
Yeah.
She's in Mirage as the mentor.
Ben Schwartz is in it too.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was just like, is that Sonic? Anyway,
this is very random, but Ben Schwartz is in Invincible, which is really funny coming off of Sonic because the two shows are completely different tonally.
Nice.
And it's very funny to hear Ben Schwartz in.
Doesn't J.K. Simmons get married to like a squid in season 2 or something?
A bug.
Okay, a bug.
I'm not out here to spoil Invincible, but yeah.
Right. Well, speaking of disappointing RPGs, maybe this is a hot take, but I want to talk a little bit about Persona 3 Reload on this podcast.
That was my game of the year, Michael!
Is it actually?
No, it wasn't. No. I played 3 hours of P3.
I have noticed this disturbing pattern with Persona 3 Reload where like I'll see so-and-so is playing Persona 3 Reload on Steam, and then I'll look and they play like 2 hours of it and they're like, Yeah, it's fine. They never come back to it.
Yeah,
I
that
only
was,
played,
that was me.
I think I played like 15 hours or something.
Let me see how long it
Of
took
it.
me to finish it, because it was like 100-something hours.
I don't remember if I said it here at one point.
122 hours.
Oh, fuck.
And we'll talk
But
about that in a second.
Persona 3 Reload, and I don't really have much frame of reference for how vanilla Persona 3 is, but playing this just kind of like reminded me of how good Persona 5 actually was.
Yes,
And that was kind of the
100% yes.
That was kind of the problem. Like, I don't think there wasn't anything that I felt like Persona 3 was doing wrong. You know, I can't really, say how much I like this game or how much I dislike this game, because it was one of those, unfortunately, that did not keep my attention. Why that is, I don't know. I can't tell you. But I can say
Maybe it's
that
the
while I
pacing.
was playing this, I kept thinking, I kind of want to play Persona 5 again. I never played
Yes.
Persona 5 Royal. I want to check that out. So playing this made me want to play other games.
Yes.
So that was weird. That was a
Well,
weird
playing
experience I had.
this made me want to play other games, but for completely different reasons. Because when I was playing Persona 3 Reload, I was like, dude, I've already played Persona 3, and like I just don't need to do it again. Even in this new form, I just don't need that experience again. I don't know.
Well, see, and that's kind of like where I'm maybe not disappointed. I don't know, but like the most Persona 3 I've ever played prior to Reload was portable.
Mm-hmm.
I played it on Switch like years ago, and I didn't really care for it. So I thought this would be a good way to like get into Persona 3, but again,
Yes.
it just did not keep me. So I don't even have like that experience with Persona 3 that a lot of people do, because I never played it. So
Yes.
yeah.
And I was coming at it from a similar angle as you were, Ryan, where I was like, okay. Because, like, the problem with 3 is that you've either got the one that has crappy visual novel cutscenes in it,
Yeah.
but has extra content, or you've got the one where you can't control your party members and Mitsuru just spams Marin Karin on everything. And that's like the famous meme. Once you get her as a party member, she just spams charm on everything because you can't control her because it's like 2006?
Yeah, I think that game came out around 2006.
Yeah. There was like a mod that you can install that adds playable party members. So then, like, okay, you got a version of Fez where you could control your party members, but it's also kind of like, and I wonder how I'd feel like the moment Persona 4 gets remade, and I know that it's gonna happen, I can just feel it in my bones. I swear to my bones, even, you might say.
Your skull and bones.
Yeah. But, like, I don't think the graphics have aged super well. Like, I know that's a really surface level critique, but I don't know, it just made me kind of excited for Reload, because it's like, okay, even if this game specifically I haven't enjoyed the gameplay of, just sampling it, like you, I was like, okay, we've got this modern AAA remake of Persona 3 with some new stuff and features added in. You can control your party members, and it doesn't have shitty looking cutscenes. There we go. So I started playing it, and the game's biggest problem is 100% the pacing. And that definitely is highlighted more in retrospect now that 5 exists, and especially now that Metaphor exists. Like, Persona 3, there's so much nothing happening in that game. Like, it's as long as Persona 5, with not nearly as much plot. And none of it's paid off well, in my opinion. And, like, the counter argument that everybody will make regards theme, it's not a plot-driven game. They say it's a thematically driven game, which is fair. The game is generally about death, acceptance, loss, and about how losing someone important in your life, or in the case of like the little girl whose parents are getting divorced, there's a guy who's dying of a genetic disease, there's an elderly couple who lost a son who was a teacher. Like, that's kind of the theme through all the social links, is familial units in groups falling apart and people finding reasons to go on and reconnect, or
The
go
game is
on
about
inspired-
loss and death and grief.
Yes, loss,
it
death,
like-
grief.
Is it like Final Fantasy VII again?
I'd say it handles
sorry,
those themes
continue.
better than that game does, personally. Because, like, the social links are kind of badly paced too, but at least, like, I could feel something. Whereas I didn't really feel much of anything in Final Fantasy VII, to be honest, from the story.
You're rude.
The Kaminari, I think, is the name of the guy with the genetic disease, and it's just like, that poor man. And then he turns into a ghost at the end. Spoilers. The social links were okay, but like we're going to talk about metaphor later. I like that they pared that down to like 8 chapters for the bonds in that game. Because like with 10, it felt like they were really stretching it in 3 to have things for the characters to do. But I don't know, that's just me.
I even remember in 5.
Yeah, even
Isn't
in 5.
it like in 5, like there's still like 10 levels you can reach? Yeah, because like the thing is too is that like it feels like you want to know where like these characters go, but like it also feels like impossible. Or at least that was the impression I had when I was playing it for the first time. Was that, like, it felt impossible to get like all the characters that I want at like the max rank for your social links.
Well, evidently you get double of the social points if you have a persona in your deck that is of the Arcana or something like that, and that's how you're meant to do it.
Oh.
And there's New Game Plus if you really want to do that, but yeah.
Yeah.
So like the social links I thought were fine considering everything, and one thing that they did add, because evidently, and this is the case for this game as well, only the female party members had social links, and that was partially so that you could potentially romance them if you want.
Yeah, that was how it was, yeah.
I don't know why you'd pick anyone else when Chihiro exists and she's adorable, but that's an option. So what they did in Reload is they added these not social link activities you can do around the dorm with your Cease party members, and you can do that with both the female and male characters. Like you can watch a movie to upgrade your courage, cook with people, and then take that stuff into battle. Like, and obviously you're gonna do Ken's because he makes coffee and that refills your SP, and that's really useful for Tartarus, the worst dungeon of all time, which we'll get to. And like I thought all of that stuff was like, if we can't have social links for the characters and we can't have VMC, like this is a decent substitute. It scratches that same itch. You get gameplay benefits from doing it, and you get to spend more time with these characters and learn more about them and stuff. And you get to upgrade your social stats while you do it, so I like that. Really what it gets down to is the combat engine is completely solid. Like, I really have no complaints with like the core game loop of just fighting things in this game. And I forget what they call the mini bosses that guard some of the floors that you have to beat, but some of them had some really clever concepts going on where like one of them would cast like evasion lowering spells on you while the other one spams is like the DPS and stuff. Like they'd set up little combat scenarios that were actually pretty interesting, and then you could come up with different little strats to deal with it, and that was kind of cool. Evidently in the original, there was something called the Monad Depths, which was like a basement level. I think you had to kill the Reaper to get to it or something. So it was like towards the very end of the game. Instead, they chopped that up into these little sections. Like every 5 or so floors, there's like a door. You go through it, you fight like an easy mini boss, and then you get some materials for the antique shop to craft equipment. And that's how you get the costumes in the game. You don't buy them, you find them in a chest. So it's like all these additions are fine. What it really comes down to is Persona 3 is boring as sin.
Damn.
I don't want to be too harsh on it, but like I said, it took me 122 hours to finish this game. And a lot of that's just because you spend most of it grinding the same enemies over and over again, and it's hard to know when to stop. Because, like, you can get to the top floor, but then it's like, oh, I've got this Monad passage I've got to go do. And there's no experience share in this video game that came out in 2024. So I have to go out of my way to level up all of my party members so I'm prepared for the next Arcana boss. Because, like, the way it works in Persona 4 and 5 is you have a unique dungeon for each boss, and then at the end, you can just fight the boss. And if you're good enough to beat the boss, you're good enough to beat the boss. But in 3, the only place to grind is in Tartarus, and you can't fight the boss in Tartarus, so it's hard to know when to stop. Because, like, if you're under-leveled and you go up against the Arcana boss, like, what the hell are you going to do then? Are you going to roll back the clock and do the month over again? I don't know. I just felt pressured to grind constantly. Not just because of that, but because of the lack of experience share. It would have really helped if every, like, month of Tartarus looked different, but they repeat each theme for 2 months, and the thing has, like, 264 floors or something like that. It's just so goddamn boring, man. And I don't know how that was ever acceptable, considering that Persona 1 and Persona 2 had unique dungeons. They're different types of games, but it's like... And then you pile on the pacing where, like, nothing fucking happens in the plot for months. And then it's like, finally you get all the Arcana bosses dead and the plot finally goes somewhere, and surprise, there's this twist villain, but then he dies immediately and nothing comes of that really, except Igus goes away for a while. I was surprised how long it took Aegis to show up too, by the way. Because it's like, I thought she was going to be like the Teddy Morgana of the game, but she really isn't.
Isn't it like a dog?
There is a Koromaru, but he doesn't show up for a while either. I mean like Teddy and Morgana in a sense, like, here's a character who can give exposition on what the hell is going on. And Persona 3 doesn't really have that. I mean, I guess it has Ikutsuki, but it's a little different. And then, like, there's also the stuff with Strega, who show up way too late in the game, because, like, they're, like, your rival characters, and they do nothing for the longest time. And then there's the best scene in the game, which they are directly involved with. I do have to give credit where it's due for Shinjiro Aragaki, because like I was not expecting to like him, but I thought they did a good job fleshing him out in the month you have with him on your party, and that scene did actually hit me. I did feel something, so that's good. Even my cold, dead heart was touched by something in this video game. It's one of those games where it's so long and so little happens that it's hard to even remember specific scenes or moments from it, if that makes any sense. And then you get to the end, and the final boss is pretty decent, and the ending, we were talking earlier about spoilers and having it still be effective even when you know it's coming, and I'd say that like the final cutscene of 3 was that for me. Like, I knew that the protagonist was but I didn't know how.
He becomes a
or
door.
in what manner.
I guess you could say his fate is adorable.
Yeah. I don't know, I feel like I'm being too harsh on the game, but it's like, in a world where Persona 5 exists, this game sits at the kids' table.
Oh, fuck.
Like, I don't know why anyone would choose to play this over 5 when 5 exists. Because, like, Tartarus is boring, the story is boring, and nothing happens. And I understand that a lot of people like 3 because of the themes and the ending and how, like, the theme of death. Me personally, I'm more about the mechanics of the plot and seeing a story evolve and change and go in new directions, and that's not Persona 3. 4 has more of that. 4 at least has like the kidnapped victim of the week and new dungeons every week, and there's like a twist villain, and
yeah, I mean 4 is pretty easy with it, because it is like literally a mystery.
yes.
It's like the entire point of the game. It has a pretty strong driving plot in that way.
Because like when I started with 4, and when I was playing 4 for the first time, I couldn't put it down. With 3, I got like 90 hours into it. I got to like right before the final couple months when Ryoji finally does something. And then I just got so bored that I put it down and played the entirety of Final Fantasy VII in the meantime, and a bunch of other games, and Brothership. The only reason I finished it was for this podcast, so that I would be able to talk about it in depth, and so I could say that I finished Persona 3.
Yeah, I mean, really, because Persona 3 for me is like, I played it back when Persona 5 didn't exist, so it was like just Persona 3 and 4.
Yeah.
It was Persona 3 and 4, and also 1 and 2 existed, but nobody ever talked about 1 and 2, so I just still haven't played them. So when I played 4 and then 3, and they were both pretty comparable in a lot of ways, so I was like, oh, this Persona thing, that's really cool. And I since haven't really gone back to 3, but I do still vividly remember it, because at the time it was like, holy shit, this is like unlike anything I've ever played. So I guess it was more novel to me when I first played it.
Right.
In that sense, it kind of sticks out to me.
That
I
totally
also
makes
think
sense.
that in terms of atmosphere and like shit like that, it was like one of the more striking games, because 4 is like really bubbly and fun, and
yeah.
I mean there's dark stuff in it, but like for being a murder mystery, it leans more on the Scooby-Doo side than it does the like
that's fair.
crime noir.
The game even has kind of a 70s feel to it that's hard to explain.
Yeah. But 3 was like really oppressive and dark, and I think it still probably has my favorite ending of the Persona games that I've played. That one really, I still think about that a lot.
Right.
The moments of the game that are strong stick with me, but I also can't think of a whole lot in the game that like stands out as like, oh, this is my favorite thing in any of these games in retrospect. But I still have a lot of fondness for it. And I think maybe that's why when I played Reload, I was like, well, this is definitely Persona 3 again.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have much motivation to play it again, because I love Persona 3 exactly where it is in my memories, and I have absolutely no desire to play it again, because even the Persona games I do like, it's really hard for me these days to be like, oh, let me just drop 100 more hours to play this again, because like even the ones I really love, like, I don't know, man, I was playing it alongside Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth and FF7 Rebirth, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, I cannot devote this 100 more hours to this thing that I got everything I needed out of back in like 2012 or whenever the fuck I played Persona 3.
Yeah. I know that you, King, sort of like at this point have come to a position where like if you're going to remake something, you should err more on the reimagining side and do something totally crazy and different with it, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, that's how you get my attention. I'm not going to say people can't make things like Reload. I'm just probably not going to buy it.
Well, I think my problem is that they didn't do that enough with Reload, is that they erred too close to the original game. Like, cut Tartarus in half, and you know, like, how each of the Arcana bosses, you go to a different part of town? Like, take that and expand it into a Persona 4 dungeon. Just do that, so that each month looks different, and if you have time, you make, like, Metaphor Persona 5 type dungeons for that, too. Like, the fact that it is same shit again, and they improved nothing on it, despite it being 16 years later, you know?
I guess it's like, to me, I look at it, and I'm like, wow, you put a lot of work into this, but like, if I also feel like you could have just ported Persona 3, then it just kind of feels like wasted work.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, maybe...
Like, I'm not saying that it's not admirable in its own way. It's just, it's not really what I'm looking for these days.
Maybe it's a good starting point for anyone who has not played a Persona game before. Maybe. Because, like, I mean, my train of thought would just be like, oh, just go play 5, you know? But I could see this being someone's first Persona, like, and I'm saying this, like, as if I have some sort of, like
sure,
I'm some sort of expert in Persona, but, like, you know, like, I could see this being someone's first Persona game and be like, yeah, no, this is really good. And then, you know, kind of going on from there. But I don't know. I mean, maybe, like, whenever I talk about this, it's never to, like, bring down Persona 3. If anything, it should bring up Persona 5.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
I kind of forgot how much I actually liked that game.
I think the thing about it for me too is that like Reload didn't bother me much because in the same year they released Metaphor, so it's not like we really lost anything. Like
playing those two games
they were still
back
making
to back was a
basically
trip,
Persona 6 because Metaphor may as well be Persona 6. Metaphor feels like the Elden Ring to Dark Souls in that way, where like it's not Persona 6, but it pretty much feels like it, like spiritually.
Yeah.
So in that sense, Reload coming out and not really grabbing me, it's whatever, dude.
Yeah.
I played 3 already.
All right, well, I'm done bitching about that, so let's move on to our next game.
I don't know what that is.
Well, do you have another
I don't really have
disappointing
games anymore, so all I really have is like favorite games.
All right, what about you, Ryan?
I don't have any disappointing games per se. They're all just like varying degrees of enjoyment for me. Because again, I did not play a lot.
I mean, honestly, we probably should just...
I do have one more that I really want to talk about that was kind of a subject of discussion, at least on our corner of Bluesky, but regardless. I played Mario and Luigi Brothership for the Nintendo Switch video game system.
I didn't play that, so...
Well, I know you didn't play it, because, like, I guess it's been a topic that you and I have discussed here on the Unversed cast server, just like, hey, this, obviously the IGN review got a lot of people's attention, as they do, because I think it was like a, 5 out of 10 or something, and people were like, how dare you say a new Mario game is 5 out of 10? And then you read, like, the review, and it's just like, okay, this sounds reasonable. It's not like when they got a person who doesn't like Kirby to review the latest Kirby game and say that it was boring. You know, it was like someone who had actually played the other games and liked them. But I was still kind of curious about it, morbidly curious, you might say, because it's like, okay, it's a new Mario and Luigi game in current year, it's 3D, and it's like, it seemed to have kind of a mixed reception, so I was curious about it. And I like the Mario and Luigi games.
It's a Nintendo JRPG where you go to lighthouses.
Yes, I jokingly did that in the chat here on the server where I was like, hey Ryan, the new Golden Sun game just dropped, and I put in like a screenshot of like saying like the 4 lighthouses. Yeah, okay, well, gist of the game is, because I have played all of the Mario and Luigi games, and I think, King, you've only played the first 3.
I have played several hours of Dream Team and Paper Jam.
Okay, so, you're at least...
They never really caught my attention. I feel like Mario and Luigi just kind of ended to me at Bowser's Inside Story, and then they kept making games, and I would like look at them, and I'd be like, you know, I'll get to them someday. That's pretty much how Brothership was, where like, when they announced it, I was like, oh, cool, Mario and Luigi's back. And even if it didn't get the reviews it did, I mean, the reviews didn't help, but like, even if those didn't happen, at the time when it came out, I just was not looking for that. So I probably wouldn't have even gotten it.
Yeah.
I'm going to play Brothership someday, but I don't know when.
Maybe for like a review, if people want that.
Yeah,
Because
I don't know.
it is one of those games where it's like, I mean, having played it, it is not worth your $60, folks. Or however much Nintendo is charging for it and will charge for it for the next 25 years until they port it to Switch 2 and charge full price for it. You know.
Well, I actually also, part of the reason I didn't get it is because I peeked at the game length and I was like, nah,
Yeah.
I'm not doing that right now.
Well, like I actually...
Because I looked at the hours that people spent in it and I'm like, there is no way in hell all of those hours were necessary.
Yeah.
Because I played the original trilogy and the numbers for Brothership kind
You
of
could
shocked
finish
me.
the whole trilogy in the time it takes you to finish Brothership.
I just
'Cause
don't
I did-
think, like, I haven't played Brothership, so I'm not going to say anything about it, but I really don't feel like these are the kinds of games that can warrant that kind of playtime on
You are
their premise
absolutely
alone.
correct. Like I've been trying to say, I did actually replay the entirety of Superstar Saga recently, and that game holds up. It's fun. Like, it's a solid 10 to 12 hours. It's got a simple kind of quick time event gimmick going on with the combat where it's really more of a rhythm game with some RPG stuff stapled onto it.
Yeah.
It was a unique thing that worked well for roughly 4 games, maybe. But it's also the kind of thing where, like, because they focus so much on reaction timing and reactivity relative to the strategy, it's something that you can't really expand organically. I think that's where the 3DS games start to fall down, because I loved Dream Team when I first played it, but I've never gone back to replay it because it's like 20 hours long, and Paper Jam is also kind of long, and that game's even more boringer because they decided to make it generic and crossover with the version of Paper Mario no one likes. So that sucked. And then it was kind of like, well, we're out of money, so now all we can do is remake the old games, and we're gonna make Bowser's Inside Story 30 FPS, even though most of the game runs fine at 60 FPS with a patch. And then Elf Dream died. And it was kind of up in the air whether there was gonna be another one of these games for a while. And I feel like part of the reason the series died was not just because Elf Dream went under, but because it's a formula that was difficult to expand upon and that they had pretty much done everything with by the third game. I mean, like, everybody seems to agree that Bowser's Inside Story or Superstar Saga are the best ones, pretty much. And those games are great. They're short and sweet, and they get in, they get out, and they're fun. Once you got to the 3DS games, they felt pressured to put in filler and make them longer, and it's not good extra length. It's more grinding, pretty much, and more story you don't care about, and then it's not something you really feel like revisiting, and in your case, it's not something that could grab you long enough to finish it. And Brothership feels like everything that was kind of wrong with the 3DS games kind of taken to its logical extremes, combined with the level-based structure of Partners in Time without everything that makes that game interesting. Basic premise is Mario, Luigi, Bowser, and Peach, and all Bowser's minions get sucked into an alternate dimension called Concordia. Everybody is themed after like electrical outlets and plugs and stuff. Like there's literally a guy who has like a 1/4 inch microphone jack for a head, which I appreciated as a geek who likes that kind of stuff. And the premise is the land used to be connected to one big landmass, but a disaster struck that destroyed the Unitree that connects everything. All of the pieces of Concordia have been separated and are floating along on ocean currents. And Mario and Luigi have been brought to this dimension to help the new Botanist create a new Unitree and reconnect all of the landmasses. So it's kind of like a not so subtle allegory for how societies get divided up, like internal division in society, civil conflict, and how important it is for people to come together and move past those kind of petty disagreements. And that kind of stuff was at least a new premise for one of these games, because like the first and third games basically have the same plot. Villain wants a magical star MacGuffin that will give them ultimate power, is pretty much the plot. So it's not that. They did something completely different, which I appreciate.
Well, that's why Partners in Time is the best, is because it's aliens.
Yes.
Smile.
So the problem with Brothership is there is actually a lot of content in it. It's not like the 3DS games where it's like, I mean, it's hard to even remember those games, honestly, but Like, there are lots of individual islands you go to, and there are side quests to do and stuff like that, so it's not like the length is entirely unearned. It's not like you're replaying the same sections over and over again, though there is a little bit of that. It's kind of like one of those things where, like, the overworld platforming and puzzles aren't particularly challenging. You move kind of slow. They decided to bring back the Brothers Ball from Partners in Time and then make it slow as ass and then wait like 3/4 into the game to give you like a spin dash move. The battle system on a curve is probably the highlight of the game. There's like this really unique system called battle plugs, and I keep forgetting that this is a thing that's been around since the third game, but like it's their substitute for badges, and it shows up like 9 hours into the game. So I think you commented on my Bluesky tweet, King, and it's like 8 hours for badges? Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
And the battle plug system is actually pretty fun. There's some customization going on there, and they have like cooldown times, and there's like you can combine them in interesting ways. There's one that adds like a fire elemental effect to your attacks, another one that creates a shockwave that hits adjacent enemies, and another one that makes ball spikes drop on enemies after you hit them. And if you combine them together, you get like a shockwave that drops ball spikes on each enemy and does fire type damage, and you can do some really cool stuff like that. So that was the highlight of the game. Really enjoyed that system, even if it came late. Yeah, and it's like, even though the story was different, it was paced kind of badly. You know what it kind of reminds me of is Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, like how those maps were divided up into like 4 sections, and you've got to finish like a temple in each one. The game is structured like that, where you have like 4 Cs, or I guess 5 technically, and you got to go to a lighthouse at each one. So that's the Golden Sun connection. Connect that to the Unitree. And the game is level based. And that was something like replaying Partners in Time and Superstar Saga. There is something missing to the world when it is level based. Like, even though like the literal puzzles and platforming and set pieces and stuff are the same, and like Chucklehuck Woods is basically a level, right? But like without that connect tissue of Bean Fields in the middle to have like side quests and stuff and give the game some open-endedness, it does feel like there's something missing in Partners in Time. And the game is just side quest light in the first place. And the same thing kind of goes with Brothership. There are side quests in the game, but it mostly amounts to go to a place and buy a thing and bring it back to an NPC or talk to an NPC. And it does that thing like Xenoblade does, where it's like, oh, side quests will expire if you take too long, which pressures you to do them all right away, even though you don't want to, because you feel like you'll miss something if you don't do it right away. There are these little islands you can go to that are like little mini gauntlets, but none of them are interesting. The story, like the literal villain of the game, looked kind of cool. He looks like La Muerte from South American folklore, like death in like the Day of the Dead kind of mythology. But then ultimately that villain gets upstaged by another villain who shows up like 95% of the way through the game. And it's the first villain since like Cacletta to have any sort of charisma, but he's barely in the game. And then there's like a section like right before the final dungeon where you have to go around talking to people to fill up a... Have you guys ever played Hamtaro Ham Heartbreak for the GBA?
Do I look like the kind of man? Don't answer that. No,
I mean, I played it as a kid.
Yeah.
But yeah. The plot of that game is that you make people happy so that they resonate and fill up like a vessel with like love juice. And then you give it to Harmony and she makes like love arrows. And that's how you defeat the villain at the end or whatever. And there's something similar to that too, where like you have to go around to a bunch of previous islands to find people with strong bonds to fill up a vessel so you can go to the final dungeon. And it's one of those things where like you go to Fortress Zocket, and that's a long dungeon, and you finish that and you fight Zocket, and then shows up, spoilers, and then you get locked out of the real final dungeon, and then you have to do all this other crap, and then you come back to the dungeon and it's like, okay, I'm just gonna fight the final boss, right? Nope, there's another final dungeon, and you gotta play that one too, and that one's got like 9 sections in it, and it just goes on and on and on. And like the final boss was pretty good. It works as a fight, and the ending was pretty good actually, like the ending cutscene and stuff I enjoyed, but it's just... This game did not need to be 40 hours long, and it kind of really cements for me why the series died, and probably will again. Like I said, it's an idea that worked really well for 3 games, and then it's like the moment that you stretch it too far, the appeal is lost. And then when you combine that with boring level design and then dull, poorly paced plot, it's just not something that's really worth playing. I know. Like, it sounds like I hate it, but it's like barely a 7 out of 10. And if it wasn't for the ending, it would probably be a 6 out of 10. So, I don't know. It wasn't that
I'm
great.
certainly interested in playing it. I don't really have any expectations, which is nice.
Yeah.
I honestly just think it's cool that it came back at all.
Yeah.
I don't really care. There's some people from Alpha Dream working on it, I know. But like, it kind of does feel like people that were making these games have all
Moved
splintered. I don't think Yoko did the soundtrack.
She
Yeah,
did, which is
I
like,
heard about that.
the soundtrack is still really good, though, I have to say, even though it wasn't her.
Yeah, but it's like not...
It's like imitation Mario
It
and
just
Luigi.
kind of feels weird because the people that made it the way that it is, as it's now like just kind of another franchise that Nintendo has. And at that point, it's like, yeah, I guess it came back, but like, I fucking adore Mario and Luigi, and it came out, and I was like, okay. It did exactly what it needed for me, and it's gone. So the fact that it's back, I'm kind of like, I'll get to it when I get to it, and I'll probably like it, maybe. I don't know. But honestly, I saw it, and I'm like, I'd rather just replay the OG trilogy again, probably.
Yeah.
Those games have been on my to-do list.
The original trilogy is great. I do want to quickly mention something. Part of what made the game not go down as smooth is that last year we played a fantastic game called Sea of Stars, which took a lot of inspiration from Golden Sun and Mario and Luigi.
Yeah, that's another reason I don't need Mario and Luigi back, to be honest, is because Sea of Stars just kind of feels like spiritually taking a lot of that shit and running with it.
What's great about Sea of Stars is that it has the reactivity components and like the overworld platforming and stuff from a Mario and Luigi and Golden Sun game, but it also has some strategy in it, which is something that the Mario and Luigi games are sorely lacking in, because basically all you do in that is spam the highest DPS attacks until the thing dies, and there's barely any strategy at all, which makes it boring, and it means that there's little room for expansion, which is why 6 games in, it's really old. Whereas with Sea of Stars, like, you have the lock system, and that forces you to actually think about what moves you're going to use and in what order. After playing that, going back to Mario and Luigi is like, okay, we've kind of moved past this. I've seen this evolve to its next phase, and now I'm just kind of going back to the previous one. So everybody go play Sea of Stars. That game's fantastic.
Sea of Stars is the best Mario and Luigi game that came out recently.
Yes.
Probably. So,
I remember there was like a lot of people that were saying that Sea of Stars was a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see that.
I was kind of flabbergasted. I'm like, wow. And then
I think the problem with Sea of Stars is how heavily it was compared to Chrono Trigger. And there are a lot of similarities, but I don't really get the same things out of Sea of Stars that I get out of Chrono Trigger personally.
Well, I saw a lot of people compare it to Chain Echoes.
Yeah, I was going to ask if
I
you'd
haven't
like to
played
do
that
that
still.
game next, Ryan, because I know you played it.
What, like talk about it?
Yeah.
I guess that would kind of go back to the 2024 catch-up stuff, because that game came out like a while ago. But I guess it can also kind of fit in my disappointment games, because I honestly didn't really love it. I thought it was cool. I thought it was really ambitious, but it kind of felt like it does that thing where it's like, oh, we want to be a more accessible JRPG. So we're going to remove leveling, right?
Oh,
So there's
no.
battles don't give you EXP, right? Instead, it's like it kind of wants to like address a lot of the criticisms that people have towards JRPGs, you know, people who are trying to get into this genre. Well, oh, they could be too grindy, right?
Yeah.
Oh, random encounters are another big one. So, of course, there's no random encounters. But then if there's no random encounters, that means that there are also points where you are forced to fight mooks. And mooks don't really give you anything, you know?
Yeah.
So it kind of fails to understand why games, 1, had random encounters, and 2, why they have EXP-based progression systems, as opposed to just like, you get a certain amount of SP to use on a single skill or to upgrade a single stat, which the game kind of does, where it's like you kind of have more control over what you level up, which is neat, but I would rather have it like the way how Sea of Stars and frankly other RPGs do a leveling system. I like the experience points, you know, because it's less things to manage, because Chained Echoes it tries to like avoid some of the trappings that like plagued other RPGs, but then it falls into other traps where it's just like it's mechanic after mechanic after mechanic after mechanic, and you get lost in the sauce, you know? Where there's like micro mechanics upon micro mechanics that you just have to manage, and it gets kind of old after a while, and then you kind of forget, like you hit a wall and you're like, oh my god, why am I hitting this wall? Oh, because I completely forgot about this one thing that the game introduced hours ago, you know? So it's like, well, fuck. I mean,
Chained Echoes is interesting to me because the only thing I know about it is that everybody who liked Xenoblade kept telling me to play it, but with like no context, and I don't know why.
Because there's like giant like mechas that get introduced later. Like you see them in the beginning, and it's kind of the tease, like, oh hey, later you get to pilot your own giant robot thing, which is more in line with Xenogears than it is Xenoblade. Though I mean, like there is Xenoblade like esque stuff in it, but I don't know. This was another game that like I really tried getting into. I thought the game has like really cool characters. I thought the story and the world and everything like that was really cool. The music was very good. But when it came to actually playing the game itself, I kind of felt like as if it didn't like, you know, classic Final Fantasy, Golden Sun, like even the Pokemon games, just like games that use traditional systems that like people nowadays kind of rag on. Those games had it maybe not for a reason, like maybe it was like, you know, limitations or whatever, but like those games made mechanics that people don't like, it made them work in its favor. Like sometimes like random encounters can be annoying in some games, sure, but like I would rather have random encounters than be forced to fight random mooks and not get anything out of it.
Yes.
Because again, like in games like this, it's like, okay, yeah, sure, you can avoid these enemies. Oh, but then sometimes an enemy's going to see you and you can try to run away, but they're going to be faster than you, and you have to engage in that battle anyways. In a game where there's no EXP, the battles kind of feel fruitless. Like you don't really get a whole lot out of it. So yeah, I don't know. Like it's not a bad game, and it's there
isn't even like gold or money or anything.
No, there's money. Because this is something I played in the beginning of the year. I don't know if you get money by clearing it. You probably get money, but like you don't really get a lot of anything out of these battles. So
yeah,
I don't know. Again, it's like I will never say that it's a bad game. This is another game that kind of wears the Chrono Trigger influence on its sleeve. Like the game literally opens the same way that Chrono Trigger does, where it's like your main character getting out of bed, your mom opening up the windows and everything, but it does so in a really funny way that was actually really clever. So I will say that Chained Echoes was not my cup of tea, but like don't let me deter you from playing this game if you're curious about it, because there might be something there that, you know, would resonate with you. It resonates with a lot of people for a reason. It's a very good game. It's a well-made game, especially for an indie RPG. It just did a lot of things that I am not a fan of, and I was kind of let down by that. Good game, just not my favorite.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're almost 3 hours in. What do you guys feel? Should we take a break and come back in 10 minutes, or should we wrap up for the day?
I mean, we pretty much covered all like the disappointing stuff, right? Like we did our catch up, we did our disappointing games. So like if we call it here, we can just focus like full steam ahead on the stuff that we actually like in another recording session.
Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise we basically only have like an hour and a half that I can devote. So probably save that for another day.
All right.